Good morning. I want to welcome everybody and thank you for attending our 2026 Spring Graduate Colloquium, where the Aspen and USU students have the opportunity to showcase their hard work in research and projects to our academic community. We look forward to our presentation today as we support the next generation of scholars. Day 3 of our colloquium begins with Dr. Dwight Harvey presenting on his research related to implementing restorative practices in secondary schools, transformational leadership behaviors that sustain reform. Welcome, Dr. Harvey.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and welcome to everyone that is here. I want to start with a quick question, and you can do it by a show of hands, or you can do it just by dropping something in the chat. Uh, how many of you have either implemented or been a part of a restorative practices in your school or your organization?
There's one that's not on our radar, that one's on our radar about it because we have so many hidden about it, but there's a piece.
Uh, But what I'm going to share with you today may confirm some of your experiences and may challenge a few assumptions. As you listen, I just want you to think about what's worked for you and what hasn't worked when looking at restorative practices. I come to this work as both a practitioner and a researcher, and I've been in spaces where restorative practices worked and spaces where they didn't work. And as you listen today, I want you to think about your own context of what's working and where are the gaps that you might find. I invite you to connect it with your own experiences. Restorative practices are being implemented in many schools, but sustaining them is where the challenge lies. A lot of initiatives start strong, but over time they lose their momentum. So, a question for each of you to consider is what causes something that starts with such energy and commitment? What causes that to begin to fade? Is it the focus? Is it leadership? Is it implementation? Uh, so, just think about that. What truly causes is to fade? Something's going on with my mouse. There we go. Uh, Now, I want you to each think about, and you can drop a word in the chat or just think about it. And what comes to mind when you hear restorative practices? What do you think about? What comes to mind? What's one word that you associate with restorative practice? And feel free to pop in and say something really quick if you want to. I'm having a few issues taking a look at the chat room. And what you'll notice if you can see the chat is you'll notice that those words often reflect either hope or frustration. And in a second here, we'll just kind of unpack those reasons. Grounding my research in two ideas. One is transformational leadership and implementation science. Transformational leadership is about how leaders inspire and influence people, how they build trust, how they set vision, how they motivate others to commit to the work. While implementation science focuses on how initiatives actually get put into practice and how they're sustained through systems, through structures, and through consistency. So here's another question for you to think about. Do initiatives struggle more because of people, or do they struggle because of systems? What I have found is that it's a little bit of both, but a big part is the system that's put in place. And whether it's working strongly or it's not, but it's more to me about the systems that are put in place. That's why implementation science is so important in this work. Now, these questions that I'm talking about, they're really about experience, and not that it doesn't really work. Does it work? But what actually happens when leaders try to implement it? As you hear the findings, I want you to ask yourself, does this match your reality? Does this reflect what you've seen? My research questions were around administrator experiences, leadership behaviors, and implementation barriers. So as we look through these, just ask yourself those questions. Now, what I did was I spoke directly with administrators that were doing this work, people in the field that were navigating the real challenges. Now, just a quick question for each of you. How many of you are currently in leadership roles where you can influence implementation, whether it's implementation of restorative practice or other implementations within your work? And just think about that for a second. Now, the methodology I used was, I used a qualitative multiple case studies, talked directly to secondary administrators. I did interviews, and then I took all of that and did some thematic analysis. And that's where I came up with each of my themes and uh, and everything that we talked about in the research. Now, four themes came up consistently as I went through my work. And as we go through them, think about which one is strongest and which one might be missing in your setting. Uh, those four themes dealt with relational accountability, the vision and the culture, capacity building, and systems integration for the work. Theme one, this first theme was about leadership modeling and how administrators emphasize that restorative practices don't take hold unless other leaders model them consistently within the organization. So think about your setting. What message does leadership actually send about what really matters? And what message does it send, just within your organizations? When leaders model behavior, or is it all about relationships versus punishment and the consistency within it? That's how they're building the trust within the organization. Now, theme two, this is where many of the efforts, break down, you know, was the culture. Now, the question that I have for you to think about here is, have you seen restorative practices treated like a program instead of a mindset? And what happens when that occurs? What I'm finding is, you're taking a look at the vision, the culture shift, and is it aligned with what leadership is actually using within the organization? Now, I want you to kind of pause here and just kind of think about, where do you think implementation breaks down within your organization? Uh, is it people? Is it systems? Or is it leadership? And if you're comfortable, you can drop something, in the chat to kind of see where that happens within your organization. Okay, moving on. Now, my next theme was about capacity. And capacity building I found was very critical. And, uh, and let me ask this question. Are we expecting our staff to implement something that they've truly been trained in and supported in, or just introduced to? Most of the time during training, there's ongoing PD, there's a focus on learning, and you get that support. But when those things don't happen, that's where the breakdown I found could really happen. That's what the research was showing. Now, my fourth theme focused on systems. Restorative practices were more sustainable when they were built into policies and daily routines, not just dependent on individuals as individuals come and go within the organization. So here's something to consider is are restorative practices part of your system or is it dependent upon who's leading? Uh, if it's a part of the system, it can continue on through generations. If it's dependent upon an individual that's leading it, when that person is gone, then the information is gone. Now, as I spoke to individuals, what they talked about were barriers. And, a lot of these barriers came up that you're seeing, they came up repeatedly. Resistance to the training, initiative fatigue, lack of alignment, leadership inconsistency. And these things, everyone that I spoke with, and were very important to them. Now, when you take a look at these, which one of these resonates with you? Drop something in the chat. Which one resonates most with your experience of implementing? Uh, and you can drop something in there about a barrier, even if you don't see it here, that keeps showing up in your work. Now, one of the core takeaways that I got from this, and I want to say this, and just I want to see how you react, and you can again drop something into the chat. Uh, Programs like restorative practices, they fail as programs, but they succeed as systems. When you hear that, what kind of reaction do you have to that? Again, they fail as a program, but they succeed when you create systems. Now think about the role that you play in your organization. Think about, what is your role as a leader? What's one leadership move you think you can make immediately to kind of strengthen the implementation? Not next week, but what's something that you can do in the next day, in the next week, uh, that could strengthen implementation of systems within your organization? I see some very good points: leading by example, actively adding value, relationship building, and communication. All those are excellent. Now, here are some things that you see that are actionable: modeling behavior, building capacity, aligning systems, sustaining a vision. When you see these, uh, which of these things do you feel are most doable for you right now as far as implementing or leading within your organization? Uh, and which one feels the most challenging? Drop something in the chat for me. about what do you see that's doable for you right now based on four uh, these four things, and which one feels most challenging to you at this point? Sustaining vision, modeling behavior feels the most attainable, and aligning systems. I see a lot of about modeling behavior and building capacity. Now, thinking about the work that you do and thinking about the broader system, not just your organization, but the broader system, the broader organization, uh, where is alignment with the broader system helping you? And where is that creating some challenges? Is the policy aligned? Is there ongoing training? Is there support from your leaders? Is the fidelity of the implementation being monitored so that everyone is getting out of it what they need? Go ahead and
No,
drop something in the chat. Just talking about where your alignment is helping and what kind of challenges are you facing. So as I looked at my research, uh, I knew that one of the limitations was the size. So for future research, some of the things that I'm really looking at doing is having a larger study instead of just looking at one region, including multiple regions, or taking a look over time, doing some longitudinal research, and then comparative models where I compare one region to another region. Or so as you listen, what questions are coming up for you that still need answers? And that's where this next phase of this work goes for me. Now, putting all this together, if you had to name it, what matters more to you in your setting right now? Is it the leadership? Is it the culture? Is it the systems? Or is it the alignment of all three of those things that can help this to really work? I'm seeing a lot of great things in the chat. So I know this went a little fast. I was a little nervous, but in closing, uh, I wanted to leave you with this. From reaction to restoration, what I find is that leadership is the bridge to all of this. The question for me becomes, what kind of bridge are we building? Uh, what are we really trying to do? What kind of work are we really doing here?
Wonderful. Thank you. We're going to open it up for any questions now to the group.
Hi, Dr. Harvey. This is Dr. Eva Ballard. Wonderful presentation today. Thank you so much for sharing your research.
Thank you.
Can you talk just a little bit about the background of restorative practices in educational settings and just kind of give everybody an overview of why restorative practices are so important in the implementation as well as leadership in schools.
Yeah. What I have found in the practicing the work, and I've been doing this for 15, 20 years, is what schools are lacking is how we build relationships with anyone, with students, with parents, uh, and how that affects the culture of the school. What I have found is that when leaders build relationships with employees and when leaders build relationships with students and in the school setting, uh, students become more involved in the context of the school itself. So what restorative practices has meant to me in schools has really been about how how the adults are talking to students, how the adults are talking to other employees, and what kind of buy-in do you get. What my research kind of delved into was there was not much research on how this affected administrators who actually are the ones that are doing the implementation. And when that implementation was not done with fidelity, it just kind of faded over time. And then systems would break down. And then people would say, well, what good is restorative practice? Most practitioners that I have found uh, have really talked about with restorative practice how it does build relationships with others and how it does work to build school culture and change the way we look at discipline in schools. You hear a lot about how students are suspended from this or suspended from that and how that's working or that's not working. Well, what research shows you is that school suspensions, they don't really work. Uh, but what does work is when we have that ability to talk to individuals, to talk to students, to talk to coworkers, to talk to parents, and deal with the frustration. It's easy as an administrator for me to suspend a student. That takes no effort. But the hard part becomes when I have that conversation, when I have that talk with the student to find out what can we do differently, to find out what can we do to restore the harm that has been done. So restorative practices is really, for me, all about building relationships with students, building relationships with coworkers, and just building relationships within the organization in order to strengthen school culture.
That's great. Thank you. And you
Mhm.
talked a little bit about systems. How does this translate into systems? Relationship building and implementing restorative practices. What does that look like from a system standpoint?
Well, for me, from a system standpoint, in a school, there are so many things driven by various systems, and I think that's where you get a lot of fatigue from teachers. There's one new program coming after another, or they take the same program and just call it something different. Uh, so in order to me for this school system in overall to work, there has to be a lot of work put into over time, what types of systems are we truly implementing within the school, be that restorative practice, be that a new math program, be that how we're training teachers or things like that. So to me, restorative practice is another system, but it can be combined with other systems that you are running in school in a school program. Uh, but like any other system, if it is not done with fidelity, if it is not done with true purpose or with the correct implementation cycles in place, then it'll fade very quickly or fade over time, and there's no one left to really truly run the system. So as far as systems go, when I'm looking at restorative practice in a school setting, that is exactly what it is, and it needs to have the proper people in place in order to run that, and the proper individuals in place in order to sustain it over time, and not just over a year or so. And that's where leadership comes in.
Yeah, it's really about that balance, the
Hmm.
alignment between the leadership and the systems. Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Hmm.
Dr. Harvey, Dwight, how are you?
I'm
Glad to
good.
see you again.
Thank you.
Um, the so I'm really hung up on the leadership role.
Hmm.
My degree and my extra work has been in that area, and ultimately, it's the leader that has to initiate change and go for it. If I were to draw a circle, or you were to draw a circle, um, where would that circle of steps end up at the top of the circle? I'm not trying to give you a test here. I'll help you if you need, but where would that circle end up at the top, the last step in that circle?
Can you kind of clarify that question
Sure.
again?
So let's say that step one is you implement something, and step two is that you test something, and step three is that you actually apply it. What would
Hmm.
step four be in your mind, or
Well, to me, in any system, it has to be cyclical. It has to be iterative. And you first thing you do is you talk about it. You put the right people in the room to have those conversations. And then, and to me, that's the longest part of this. Let's say that this was a year process. To me, that first 6 months is truly just about having the right people in the room to have those right types of conversations before you even begin implementation. And once implementation happens, then you can kind of start putting it into practice. And that's where you are really working with your leaders on what that looks like. Uh, and once it's put into practice, you have to have a way to check it. So periodically check those things and go over it and over it. And there's almost like a mini circle within the circle where that you're just being iterative in that one process. And after all of that, then you start the whole process over again. You have to go back and look at implementation again. What worked? What different worked? What didn't work? How can we stretch this out? Or maybe we focus on one thing instead of trying to focus on, three or four things. But that's all with comes with talking to people within the system, and that all comes from how your leadership is actually looking at your system.
yeah, thank you. You got it on the head. I wanted to, because it was a point I wanted to make, is that if leaders don't continually look at and learn lessons from
Mhm.
plans, even doctoral students, I tell all of mine when they make a plan for what they're going to do next and what the steps are, I tell you, you got to go back to your plan if you miss a step. You got to replan. And so I think leadership is not a never ends with a
Yes.
program. I think
Right.
it's always up for changes, whether it's our curriculum development. And while we don't want to go back through accreditation, we might want to make some changes that don't affect accreditation to keep them current, or to
Right.
keep them current with the time. So I think that's an important point. I really loved your presentation. Don't know if I participated in your doctoral um, dissertation defense, but I'm really glad that you came out and did more with it. And I'm glad to hear that you're doing more with your studies and looking to do more studying. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Dr. Dunn.
Dr. Harvey, what's next for you in this work?
That's a good question. That's what I've been trying to ask myself for. I've taken a little break and just kind of been thinking about some of the things that I want to do next. But what I've been doing is I've been writing some books, putting some thoughts down just about the work itself, and really trying to see how can I truly focus on doing this work with administrators. Where I found that, as an administrator, there wasn't a lot of research out there just on that topic. So for me, what's next is, I kind of want to position myself as a person that is truly not just someone that understands this work, but someone that can truly become an architect of this work and help people work with systems, help people see what the challenges are, because this work takes time and it's very challenging as well. I know it's challenging. It was challenging for me just as an administrator because I tell people all the time, as much as I know about, restorative practices, I am not always the most restorative individual. So, what does that really look like? And how do you fight those types of barriers so that you can get to restorative being not just what you do, but restorative being a choice that you make? And that's the thing that I'm kind of really pushing is how can I work with administrators so that they can work with their constituents and understand that this work is about choice. Whether you're the most restorative or you're not, you can choose to suspend someone or you can choose to make a different choice. You can choose to have a conversation. Uh, you can choose to change how you talk, or you can choose to do something totally different. So, to me, this work is all about choice and mindset, and so that's what I'm really looking to do is work with others on my experiences and moving systems into the next level.
That's really, really wonderful. I look forward to learning more about what you're doing in the space. And you clearly have a tremendous passion for restorative practice and for schools and for children. So thank you for your service in that work.
Mhm.
And does anyone else have any questions for Dr. Harvey?
Well, thank you. If not, we will conclude. Dr. Harvey, thank you so much.
So I thank you guys, thank everyone for showing up, and I really appreciate and a special thank you again to Dr. Holzer, who was my chair. I just wanted to say how much I truly appreciate the work that you did with me and helping me through this process, as well as any of you here that were my professors. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to do this.
Wonderful job. Thank you so much.
All right.
Great
Take
job.
care.
All
Great
right.
job,
Bye.
Dwight.
Thank you.